All right, here we are back on the podcast. We've got Dad, also known as Hickok45, which is always strange. But there's still people who don't know that. I mean, one of the most hilarious things to me is when people will comment on like an Instagram photo of mine, like at the range or a video, and they'll be like, "How'd you get to shoot on Hickok45's range?"
I was born there. Well, it depends on you got a little bit different audience. You got a lot of comics watching, I guess, and other weirdos, right?
The comics don't watch.
Some gun people. And,
yeah. Comics don't. Comics don't watch each other's content.
Okay.
But it's kind of like in the in the gun world.
Well, it is kind of that way.
If you make content,
you're not sitting watching it all the time unless you're just kind of, I don't know, interested in a specific gun.
Right.
And that's one reason I end up watching videos lately. When we first started this, I guess there are fewer people doing it. And I remember watching a lot of videos, like Tim, and just nothing fancy, just people that were making a lot of those videos, like we were. But I don't know, but you talk to those folks, Such or whoever, and we all sheepishly admit that, well, I don't see your videos like I should. We're busy doing our own stuff, and unless we're just looking up a firearm, and I wonder what so and so thought about that one, or I'm thinking about buying a gun, and I just Google it, or on YouTube search, and it often it's someone I've never heard of, just to learn about it.
Yeah, I mean, I won't say I don't watch gun videos because I do, especially if I get a new gun that I'm really excited about. Like I remember when I got the M60, I watched every single M60 video I could find on YouTube. There's something about
we're all like that.
Yeah, there's something about when you get really excited about you think there's a lot of videos on a certain topic too, and there's not as many as you think when you are looking for every single one.
You exhaust them, especially the good ones,
right,
very, very quickly sometimes. That's right. And I see comments like that. You'll see a comment on videos and say, I just bought this gun today, or yesterday, or whatever, and the same thing. They liked that gun, bought it, and then they Googled up and searched on YouTube and found it, started finding videos on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know the feeling.
Yeah. I will say, when I was saying comics don't watch each other's stuff, there's one difference with that is, with us making YouTube videos, we kind of have our own way, so we're kind of set in our ways.
Right.
But with like me as a comedian, like I'm still trying to learn how to do it. Right. So I do find myself watching a lot of comedy, but it's not like comedians I know. Yeah. Unless I'm there in the room, I'm watching like famous comedians and
I do the same thing. I'm trying to learn how to do it, and I watch Such.
That's right. Yeah.
A real professional.
You got to watch someone who's better than you. That's right. How you learn.
Yeah. That's right.
We were saying about how there's not as much content as you think. I've had that experience with movies too. Sometimes, like Vietnam War movies, for example. I love Vietnam War movies. And I remember a while back I was thinking, it's kind of crazy. There's, on some level, there's a lot, but there's really not. As far as the really good ones, as iconic of a genre as that is, Vietnam War movies. I mean, basically, you've got Platoon, Apocalypse Now, We Were Soldiers, Full Metal Jacket. I mean, I would say that's like probably the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
And then you do have some other smaller ones. You got Good Morning Vietnam, things that are a little bit more set in Vietnam, but it's not like a war movie.
Uncommon Valor. You got a few, kind of like that. But
they're like around the server. But we really get down to it. There's not as many as you would think.
No, I know. I have that same experience looking up guns, like you're saying. Now, some firearms, there are lots of videos, but then again, not really as many as you would expect. You get through them, especially if it's something you really, I don't know, you just are enamored with, and you just bought one, or you're trying to learn a lot more about it, and you get through 5 or 6, and it's the same in other areas too. Anything that you're researching, and you think, well, I could probably just watch videos for a year, but no, you can't.
No, you can't, and they're all different too. It's really fascinating because me and Jesse, who's also been seen on this podcast, we're kind of starting a different type of project that we're going to do on YouTube and stuff. And I've been kind of looking out there and seeing what other things are out there, and certain things we're planning on doing. And it's fun to watch different people's takes on a similar thing, right? Whether it's a singular review on a certain item, or even when I'm researching something, you notice that, and it's like everyone has like their own kind of take on it, which is kind of interesting. And that's what's so great about YouTube, because that's how you can really watching something from a lot of different perspectives is the best way to kind of fully understand that what that thing is.
Well, yeah, it gets back to something I've noticed through the years. Kind of a news flash for me that people are different.
That's right. Really, especially the different ones.
Yeah. Well, it is I don't know. It's kind of a phenomenon, really, when you think about it. Well, on a more obvious level, isn't it amazing that almost everybody who is fortunate enough to have a face and have eyes, 2 eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and all that, teeth, eyebrows, hair, how there's so many people, but very few are duplicates. I mean, that look alike. Yeah, I mean, how's that happen? Everybody. But I mean, some look similar to others. Right. But then also, in sports and in anything you do, you can take a person, the same human. We talked about this, when I was playing basketball in high school and college. It'd be, guys that were like the same size as I was, or you run across players on the opposing teams that were your height, your weight, and everything. And people you worked out with and you played on teams with, exactly almost the same size as you. But they're such different players, all the little nuances, you know, in their shot and how they react. And, and you could that's just an example, but you could go through the list of high school or college or whatever pro players, 1,000 that are the same weight and size and maybe even the same speed, the same quickness level. And go watch them all play, and it totally different.
Right.
It's just interesting.
Absolutely. And you can't always tell, by looks are very deceiving. With
that's another thing I noticed lately. You can't judge a book by its cover. Yeah,
that's
right.
a good.
That's right.
Good
I made that up. Actually.
I like that. That's good. I could see that catching on.
Yeah. Comics will be using that now.
They will. Yeah, exactly. Using basketball as an example. You maybe see some big old guy and think like, oh, but he's a great basketball player. No, he might be terrible.
Oh yeah.
Size isn't everything. I was thinking too recently how so there's this new player, Victor Wembanyama. Probably been hearing about him, right?
That's that really tall guy.
Yeah. I got to see him play when the Spurs played the Bulls. It was really fascinating. He didn't have a great game, but it was still fascinating to watch him play.
He's 7'6".
No, he's. On the dot, they measured him in the the NBA like combine at 7. There was like rumors he was 7'5", but he's actually 7'3.5".
Oh, he's a short guy,
right? Exactly. But 7'4". That's what I would call him. 7'4". He really doesn't look that strange. They call him alien.
Yeah.
But seeing him in person, it was like. It's like he was right and everyone else was wrong, kind of. You know what I'm saying?
Like everybody else was short.
Yeah, like he looks pretty normal, surprisingly normal.
Yeah,
for a guy that tall. It's just like you went on your like you're looking at him on a screen. Everyone's like normal, and then you take one person and just kind of make him a little bit bigger.
Wasn't Kareem 7'2" or 3"? I think wasn't he
7'2"? I think. Yeah.
I think it was.
But what I was gonna say is people kind of. I get annoyed by what a lot of people say about him as like he'll have an impressive game or have some impressive move or something. Mm-hmm. You'll read in the comments and be like, yeah, he better be doing that. He's 7'3" or whatever.
Oh, I know.
But they don't realize how many. There's actually a lot of. I mean, it's rare, but there's in the basketball world there are a lot of other guys that height.
Right, or 7 or 7'1", and there's not that much difference.
Every few years, I feel like you'll see some viral clips of some just crazy dominant high school basketball player that's like a 7'8", and he's just dunking on everyone and no one can stop him, and you think like, oh man, this guy's gonna be the next thing, but then you never hear about him.
Yeah.
And there's even some in the NBA that are that tall that are just like this guy Bobo is his name, and he just sits on the bench. He's 7'2" or something.
Yep, there's a limit. There's a limit. I'm in fact reading a book recently discussed that bigger's not always better, and just about how people grow up and things that are slow to grow and to build are actually more solid and more viable in most cases.
Right.
And, there's lots of examples of that. A lot of people are very unhealthy. Maybe it was in that book about a guy that was biggest guy I think that's on record, like 7'9" or
8'6".
9 feet tall or 8 feet. Yeah,
8'6". Yeah.
And he couldn't even walk. He just had to have braces on his legs.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. You look at pumpkins. Okay. I've gone there for years, always trying to find a giant pumpkin. Oh man, let's find, even if it's really expensive, get one that's, I don't know, 5 feet tall or whatever.
Right.
Well, they're always misshaped.
Right.
Once you get to a certain point.
With anything, if you're pushing the limits, it's going to be a bit ugly.
It's going to be different. Yeah. Just like me.
Yeah.
Get out there.
Well, yeah, that's what surprised me that Victor guy, he looks kind of normal. I remember, hopefully he's not someone who listens to the podcast, but
I hope Kareem doesn't listen either.
That's right. He's going to be upset.
I use past tense.
Well, there was this guy, you might remember him. He played for Kentucky. His name was Shagari. I'm probably saying his name wrong, but it was like Shagari Aline or Alil, something like that. It's been a long time. But when I went to that UK basketball camp, remember what was that? Was that middle school or was I in high school yet? It was like a freshman in high school.
Freshman, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, so he played for Kentucky then, and he was the same height as Victor, 7'3". Right. I don't think he ever made it to the NBA. I don't think he didn't even start for Kentucky. But I remember I watched him dunk without leaving the ground.
Yeah,
you know, and it was crazy. But as big as he was, his head looked huge.
Really?
Imagine how big your head has to be to look big on a 7'3" body.
Yeah.
Well,
it shows you the quickness and the speed and everything is so important.
Yeah.
Just being, and they used to, bug me. I had to answer that so many times when I was playing basketball in college, especially. It seemed like it'd come up because you're out and around more in different places. But when I was playing high school, it was a smaller town and people knew me, or they kind of, I don't know, was more aware. But when you're in college, you're traveling and whatever, or when I'm 30 or 40. You get it too. People in a Minute Mart or somewhere, and especially out in the country.
Yep.
Wow, you're tall. Did you play I bet you played basketball, but you were good. Wow, why aren't you in the pros or whatever? Wow, you did. And here's the line I heard so many times. I don't hear it as much anymore. I don't know what it is, but I'll bet all you'd have to do is drop it in.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear that? I mean, it's just all the time.
I have a joke that I do about it.
And I would say, well, yeah, except there's usually somebody my size trying to keep me from dropping it in.
Yeah.
They don't think about that.
Right.
Yeah.
I have like a whole joke that I've been working on about that. I'm not going to tell it now, but ruin it. But it's people have such a misconception about that. And I've been thinking a lot lately how it's funny that, like I get it on both ends where people think I look like a basketball player, and I did play, obviously. I go to NBA games, and people literally will say, you should be out there. It's like, I don't think you understand the level of talent on that court right now.
Cut me a check, and I'll be out there.
Yeah, exactly. But then it's like, I look like a basketball player, but I don't look like a comedian. And I'm not a great stand-up. I'm still working on it, but I'm way better of like relative to other comedians that exist in the world. And me as a basketball player relative to other basketball players that exist in the world, even at my best, I'm a far better stand-up comedian than I ever was a basketball player. Yeah. But I do not look like a stand-up because people have these misconceptions of what someone that's doing a certain thing or whatever is supposed to look like. It's it's a kind of a problem in our culture where one thing that irritates me too is, like with guns, is I'm not a hardline conservative, right? I have different opinions about different things, and I think you do too, to a degree,
right?
But if you have one thing that people view as being conservative, guns, namely in this example, then people just basically autofill the rest of your opinions.
Absolutely, they really do. Yeah. I'd lean libertarian on most things and all that, but I've always been a little round peg against square hole. I don't fit on. It depends on the issues largely, but I have had that exact thing happen to me in the workplace lots of times. It, for various reasons, the people would assume, with any workplace, you've got a group of people, they're, politically on this left, they're saying, and on the right, or whatever you got. And people just assumed that I was on the left in a big way, because of certain attitudes or something I might have about a particular topic,
Right.
And then I would confuse them because very conservative on them. So,
Right.
But I don't want to think of it that way. Just think of it the specific issue, what I think about it. And usually it comes down to leaning libertarian, on whatever the issue is. And most people are not, they're on one side or the other.
Right. I've always felt like regardless of what the political party is, whether it's conservative, Republican, maybe even this would go for libertarian or what Green Party, environmental, whatever the bigger camps are. If every single belief that you have, or 95% of them fall right in line with that camp, I feel like you're probably not being yourself.
Yeah, you're not thinking through everything, probably.
Yeah, if you just think about just the way that the randomness of the way the cards fall. We talked about gambling last time. How we were talking about. I think we talked about how everything is. There's like this weird random effect of where things happen in streaks or whatever, different things like that, and just the randomness, of life.
Right.
Like people are going to tend to find themselves in more towards one of those camps because that's why those camps exist.
Right.
But it also seems like the odds of someone, if they're being genuine, not having beliefs that go against that camp are slim to none unless they're just being influenced.
Yeah, especially if they're extreme or not. I think I just lost sound in my left ear, but I guess it's okay on recording. I can hear fine. Yeah.
Only in your left ear?
Yeah, I think so.
I bet it's the plug or the cord. Check they're plugged in right here.
This one is. Oh, there we go. Now it came back.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Okay.
I had this problem on one of the other podcasts.
Okay. Of course, I like to think.
If you were smooth, you could have been like, for example, I can't hear out of my left ear. So
that's right. So that means
we're talking about
I'm leaning
right. Yeah.
But I like to think I have pretty strong principles when it comes to freedom, and on about any issue, I'm gonna vote for individual freedom. Liberty, lots of words you could use on the issue. There's no perfect system. There's no perfect philosophy.
Right.
And it's like capitalism. There's a famous quote from somebody about how it's a unfair, messy, dirty system that should not exist, or some kind of crazy thing like that. And you're like, except it's the best system on the planet right now that we know, or something like that. You know? There is no perfect system, of course, or anything. But so you just have to decide where you fall down on things. And in all the mess, there's mess on all sides, any philosophy, political direction. But I'll usually, when in doubt, okay, I'll choose this messy one over here that gives us more freedom.
Right. And it's not even just the government. I mean, anytime you have any sort of organization that deals with large groups of people with different kind of needs, Absolutely. It's always a nightmare. Like one of my favorite things to do in these kind of discussions is look at a microcosm, and I'll bring up comedy again because it's a world that I know. Mm-hmm. I think this is kind of interesting. So, so there's a thing that comedians do when they're coming up, or even once they've established themselves. They're called open mics, where you just pop in and you do a 4-minute set. And it's a way for some comics to learn how to do comedy, and a way for other comics to just try new material that they're not ready to try on something where there's like bigger stakes yet, right? And so in a lot of comedy scenes, there's tons of comedians. There's maybe 100 or 200 or 500 or thousands, depending on where you're at, of comedians all trying to become comedians, right?
Yeah.
So you have these open mics where they're in some bar somewhere, and the bar has different rules, like things where they may close at this certain time, and there's different limits on how long it can go. And maybe you've got 50 comedians that want to be on this open mic, right? But it can't last for 7 hours.
Right.
So you have to do certain things to make it work, right? And there's all these different styles of running an open mic. You've got lottery, where you just put your name in a bucket and then you pull the name and then you get your spot, or it's totally random. You don't know when you're going to get called up, or you know ahead of time and it's random, or it's based on who gets there first. And there's a bunch of different systems, and there's a negative and a disadvantage and a positive to every single one.
That's right.
And someone always gets mad.
Oh yeah.
I've seen like at least 10 different styles of open mics, and someone always is mad.
There's no way to please
each
everybody.
one.
Yeah.
You just can't. It's just unavoidable. And we're talking about just a small group of a few hundred or 1,000 people.
It's still though the numbers, high numbers. The higher the number, the less freedom there's involved. You look at your cities,
or at least the harder it is to have
more
freedom.
And very, very difficult. Good example of that too. Teaching, just anything where you got a lot of people, like you said. I mean, an amusement park or whatever.
Right.
Think of how they have to a really busy amusement park, or even a restaurant. The fish fry in Paris or whatever. You got to have rails and ropes and get where people can line up. There has to be more control because you got a lot of people involved. Teaching was a really good example also because I would try to explain to students, whether you get it or don't, whatever. You think I'm just blowing smoke. I'd say, but I would tell them at times blowing smoke.
Right.
I say, look, I know there's crazy rules. Sometimes you think they're crazy. And I have rules of my classroom or different things too. You might think are crazy, and I say it's numbers. It's numbers. If there were 3 of you in this class, we almost need no rules.
Right.
Nothing. You wouldn't have to raise your hand or be recognized, and we didn't have to do that anyway. Once I kind of get in our system, but. You got numbers, but the reason chewing gum is some big issue in schools, it's because of the numbers. If there are 2 or 3 students in my class, we could literally, I'll have a coffee pot over here, and we have a drink machine and chewing gum if you want it, and you relax, like a college class might be or something. And, there's only 3 of us. It's one to me. You're not going to stick gum on the desk. I could tell you, chew all the gum you want, just throw it in the trash. You're not going to. But when you got 20 or 30 and then you got 300 in the building and it's got to be managed for their safety and to keep the chaos down, or yep, that's right. Numbers are the factor. Like if you had 8 people show up for an open mic at almost any bar, anything that's going on,
makes it way easier.
Be simple.
People get more time, and but then again, the downside of that is there's only 8 people there, and it's probably not a good open mic. I think part of it there's I think the natural progression of that, like you're saying, is as you get more and more people. You have less and less freedom in a lot of cases, or at least it's way more complicated to try to have freedom. Right, you're gonna have fewer choices on some level the more people you have, but then it hits a tipping point where then it kind of fractures off into its own little subgroups.
Yeah, and
then it starts to get good again. I feel like, and then those little subgroups become the same thing all over again. Kind of the same thing with these like banana republics, where they're like, okay, this government is corrupt. We're gonna take it over by force. They take it over. And then they're like, oh, damn, this is hard.
That's right.
And then it becomes the same problem.
Yeah.
Or something else I've seen happen in a microcosm that we know happens on a big level is someone will get frustrated with a power structure. They'll be like, well, screw that. I'm going to start my own thing. And then they start behaving just as big of a tyrant as they did, or even worse. A lot of the time.
Or when they overthrow that system. It's not fair, and you're not being fair to these people, and whatever.
It happens
they
in comedy.
They overthrow it, and they are the same way or worse. Yeah. They realize how difficult it is. And that's the issue of management. I had a taste of management, so I've been on all sides of that, and some people are just not suited to be a manager. I'm not sure I was or not. Probably wasn't tough enough or whatever, but it's really tough, hard to be a management person or be in management. And so everybody that's being managed or whatever that works in your department or whatever it is, they can see because they're sitting in a place where they don't have as much responsibility. So it's easy to, boy, it should be, why are we doing it this way? Well, there's usually a reason why it's being done that way. Now, it may not be the smartest reason,
right?
But there's usually a reason for it. And it's hard to see it, and it's just tough. Everybody needs to be in management one time in their lives.
So they at least understand.
They need to run a small business, and they need to be in management, and they would have a lot more insight.
Yeah, a lot of people get very upset that their manager or their boss makes so much more money than them. Yeah. I've seen people say things like, "Well, your job wouldn't even exist without us," or whatever. Yeah. Do you think about this? It's like, do you really want a manager that's just doing it for fun?
Yeah, really.
I don't think that's going to be a good person to be in charge of you. You almost would rather someone who doesn't even want that job, but the money is just too good to turn down.
Yeah.
So they're more likely to be like, all right, how do I organize this in a way that keeps everyone happy, instead of being like a tyrant up there, like, oh, I like this person, so I'm going to do this and control that, and
And that doesn't go so well these days. People don't put up with that really in most environments. But now
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I mean, well, sorry to disagree, but I'm just saying, like, I think it's more of the rule than the exception. Like that old saying, power corrupts absolutely. I mean,
well, it depends on what you're talking about. But if you're a manager, you're middle management, generally, if you're high up in management, you're vice president somewhere, it's a little bit different. Or you're answering to the president of the company owner, and it's like, okay, this is the way it's got to be. If people don't like it, too bad. The manager's under me, going to have to do this, whatever. But it's easier to be that way. But if you're like kind of front line, managing a lot of people, you got to work with people. You can't just be a tyrant. It doesn't go so well.
That's true, I guess. Where I'm kind of thinking more of like
Jesse would tell you that if you're a sergeant, and you're kind of the troops. You're out there in the trenches with the troops, but you're a rank above everybody. Right. But I mean, your job is to kind of help them and serve them and get them what they need, and right, Jesse?
Well, it's kind of a weird dynamic because when you got a mass of people like that you're trying to do the right thing for and really get everybody on the same page. It's really hard to hone in on the individual. I know you could probably understand that from teaching. Yeah. Like you kind of got to look at everybody and do everything for the greater good. Right. But sometimes getting everybody on the same page is really, really difficult.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
It is. You've got such a diverse group, human beings. And
would you say the military though is bad for if you had a lot of people that were above you, you felt like they were kind of power hungry, or they were just trying to do or is it more common that maybe they're an asshole, but they're just trying to do their job? You know what I mean?
So with the military, in my experience, they keep everything very compartmentalized. So, for example, before you go out on a mission, you might have a group of majors or colonels go into a meeting, and they'll talk about the bigger picture of the plan. And as that information gets disseminated and broken down through the ranks, little pieces of that information begin to fall off. So by the time it gets to the lowest person, they don't have the full picture of what's going on, but they have the picture of what they need and how to accomplish their little piece of that puzzle. Right. So yeah, it's kind of like
one has really in the military structure, it's like no one really has enough power to abuse it. To a certain degree.
That and you don't always know exactly everything that's going on. So sometimes it's hard to question that power structure because you don't know everything.
Right. You know that you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to assume, okay, this is for the greater.
Maybe it's about the gaps. Maybe that's where the corruption comes in more, is when you have like the way I imagine the military, I kind of would picture it being, you obviously have a lot of experience in the corporate world. I would imagine that both of those are similar in the sense of you don't have big gaps between the different levels of power, whereas part of the problem with like politics, for example, or countries or nations is you do have people with huge amounts of power that you don't have someone like as right above them
Right.
And you know what I mean? There's a bigger gap between who's above them and who's below them.
Yeah,
kind
like
of
our
thing.
senators, there's nobody between.
Yeah, like the
me
president,
and my senator.
yeah, well, yeah, that too. And the president is above them technically, but it's not in the same way.
Right.
They're
Yeah,
not breathing down their neck or anything.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that part of like the ongoing issue right now with like the whole Schumer thing, that they feel like the structure is too compartmentalized, and some of the senators, and they feel like they're not getting enough access to information. So while they're kind of fighting,
I think that's part of
Could
it.
be, yeah.
Part of it. But anyway, it's difficult to be in charge at any level.
Right, absolutely.
I've always tried to be aware of that, and also I have been thankful that I wasn't in charge in most cases, other than students. That's a big responsibility. But I know when I was in publishing, I remember, and I was new to it. That was my first foray into the corporate world and sales, marketing, everything. And I was a rep out in the field. And I remember being in a sales meeting, San Diego, I think, early one. And there was this older guy. He was kind of like me now, but he wasn't probably as old as I am. But he had been with that company for a long time, and he was still in the field. He wasn't interested in being a district manager. There were a lot of different levels, and regional manager and everything. And I remember sitting around. He was a little bit of a grouser, and curmudgeon. And we were sitting out in a park somewhere. We were at a college campus or something, having this meeting, and he was just talking about someone, I guess, had taken a position as a manager from the field or whatever. And he said, these young people, they take these management jobs, they make another couple $1,000 and all the headache. I remember that sinking in when he said that. Because he was an example of someone who intentionally, he really knew the business, he really knew the field, and was really successful. He didn't want any part of management, and I remember thinking at the time, well, that's interesting, because I remember thinking, this guy's he's not in management, he's just like me, he's the same level as I am. He was like 30 years older than I was, and he had not worked his way up, but he did not want to work his way up. And I always remembered that. I was that way in teaching. I did not want to be in administration, and I had to work at staying out of administration because I had opportunities to do that. I just wanted to teach, and be in the classroom. And again, in that environment, it wasn't much more money either. And now in some environments, it's a lot more money, maybe. I don't know. But in the environments I've been in, it really wasn't a lot more money, but it was a lot more headache.
Yeah.
I looked at it.
Yeah, it's just, I guess in a nutshell, it's what we're trying to say. It's a more complicated world than a lot of people realize.
Find something you like and you're good at it, and don't be, the Peter principle, you're familiar with that, where it's the concept of being promoted to a point where you're incompetent, where you do, like the being a field rep in publishing, for example. Wow, that was really good. And that happened. I can't think of a specific example where someone's really good at that. So they got promoted to management. They interviewed, and of course, this business. You're really good at it. Well, management's different, and maybe they're not good at it. Maybe they're not good with people. They're not even good at managing the other representatives. But maybe they hang out and do that for a while. They're good enough, and they get promoted to another position. So they're just useless.
Back in your traveling days with the publishing, what was that like? Was there like kind of I imagine it being a little bit cowboyish, right? Because you're out there on the road and you're cutting edge technology.
Well, yeah, the first couple of years it wasn't really cutting edge technology, but it was a bit like being a cowboy. You had your territory and you take off, and you had, in those days, I think in most positions now, partly because of technology, everything is so micromanaged. It's just a different world. But yeah, I just was responsible for Tennessee and Kentucky originally, and I knew where all the accounts were in the colleges, universities, and medical publishing and everything, and allied health. And I could just decide where I needed to be, which times for the most part, and go there and just talk to people and send them free stuff, and then go talk about all that kind of thing. And then when I got into software, it really was cowboyish.
Yeah.
Because I had the whole eastern United States. Everything east of the Mississippi River, I was up our territory.
Yeah.
And it was new and it was exciting. It was really interesting time. I guess it'd be a little bit like being on the cutting edge of AI right now or something. I don't know. Being with NVIDIA or being with Apple, I don't know, Microsoft.
Do you ever like see someone else in your territory selling the same software and you slash their tires?
Well, no, I mean, I had it. We had we had that. And
like, this is my territory.
Really. And they would call us. They wanted to see it. And so it was really cool. I had to do, like, just flying to Boston University and in my little floppy disk, they'd have the Apple computers and I would show it to them. And this was stuff that a third grader would think is lame right now, you know.
Oh, of course.
But at the time, it was so impressive, you know, and it was fun, a lot of fun. But again, everything has changed so much. There's probably no one who will have a job like that again.
Right.
You know, just get on a plane, even need to get on a plane,
and
go show something like that, and everybody be excited and whiz banged, you know. And not even sure how. A lot of them weren't even sure how to use a computer. Their management and their department was at the time trying to get them to learn and to buy more computers and to get more microcomputers, Apple IIs or whatever.
Even that term is crazy, microcomputer.
Isn't it? Yeah, Apple IIs.
Because, you know, when you said, even though I knew what you're talking about, just when you said the words microcomputer, immediately I imagined like a little chip like you put in your brain or something. You know what I mean?
It was funny.
It is. Wow. I think it's funny. We maybe talked about this before on the podcast, but I love that you got to, well, I guess you know where it is, but that book that you have, that's the Internet 1995.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you didn't lose that, right? You know where that is?
I think I do. Yeah, okay. I have it. I still have it.
I was going to say, we got to put that. That needs to make a presence on the internet. You know?
Well, I know
in some way, shape, or form, because that's such a hilarious. Literally, it's a catalog. Or no, it's more like the Yellow Pages,
like a phone book.
Yeah, it's a phone book, but which even the phone book is outdated now. But it's a phone book for the internet.
Listening, what's a phone book?
Yeah, it's just absurd to me that every website at one point fit in a book.
Yeah. I was telling Jesse before we started today that I spent the day yesterday putting a bookcase together. You'll see tomorrow, and so I've got 2 bookcases now to do something with all these books and I was moving them around, and I ran across one down on that shelf. It's not quite as bad, but it's Microsoft Windows 2006 version, something like that. You know, so it's like that thick. You know, and I also have to wrap that up and get somebody for Christmas. 2006 Office is what it was. Yeah, gosh.
I remember there was some kind of game you got me. And it was a chess game. It was a computer game.
Yeah,
and I remember it took all these floppy disks to install it. I mean, there was just like a sleeve of floppy disks, to install this thing. You know, I mean,
that was a weird time. Like I say, I'm really glad I went through all that. It was a lot of headache, and I was on the bleeding edge and everything. It was exciting, and it really was very exciting. We had that little department where I was worried. It was CV Mosby Publishing, at the time. They've been bought up now, but they were a real classic nursing and medicine publisher. And started up, there were like 6 or 7 of us, and had those 3 or 4 programs for testing and for education. And it was just innovative, and not many people had it, and everybody was calling, and they wanted to see it. And, we'd send them out to let them look at it too, but then we'd fly around. And I had an air card, and this is back in the days when flying wasn't such a hassle. Now it's like riding a bus or something, but so it was pretty, I wasn't glamorous, but it was, I got tired of flying in the 80s, but I would just fly to New York City city, and I would drive around the state and stop it. Anywhere, wanted to see it, you know. And then almost everyone would buy it, send in an order after they saw it. And then I'd go to a different state the next week. And with the PCs, the IBM PC was big, and the Apple II. Those were the 2 microcomputers. Most people in education had Apple, but where they were buying them, they didn't have them yet. Then I came back to education. It was the same thing. We had a computer lab, but everybody didn't have access to it, especially in the middle school. And so then we had that drive. I wanted to get laptops and do all that. And that went into a whole nother era. But I mean, now that is like, I mean, you can't even, when you explain about all that, how innovative that was, wow, students had laptops and they carried them around. People are like, well, okay. That's like, they had a book bag. And so the book bag, a big deal too,
Yeah.
But it was just, it was really, all of that was cutting edge. It was kind of fun, but it was crazy. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that classroom wired up?
It's pretty crazy. Because their computers were all connected. That's why it took all those wires.
They had to be connected.
Because even then, I mean, to run the computer, all you needed was just the power adapter, right? I mean,
well, and it wasn't really, they weren't tied to internet. There was no internet.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what the wires were about. Right?
Yeah. Except the kids were not even on the internet those first few years.
But
remember?
That's right. It was just
a local area network within the classroom,
so
we could share files and all of that. But there was nothing external except for until about the mid to late 90s.
Yeah. Imagine if you tried to upload a 4K video and just shut the whole thing down.
Oh, I know.
Back then.
It's funny going through that where no one had laptops or computers like that. And then I was there for 23 years. And in my last 7 or 8 years, I would just think, wow, if you only knew what we went through. Because they brought they had tablets then. And hardly anybody had trouble with them ever, and they just use them when we wanted to. Not it's just so seamless those last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah,
I pulled my hair out. I spent the night at the school a couple of times just working on those laptops, trying to get them running so everybody would have one, all that kind of thing.
And just imagine after all those years of working on computers, now you're in the computer.
Yeah.
So to put it into perspective now, something to think about, most middle school kids get sent home with a laptop throughout the school year. That's commonplace for middle school kids.
Even that'll be old school soon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think even the concept, we with technology, we're so bad about being short-sighted, I feel like you go watch like a 80s movie that's depicting the future. For some reason, correct, if you guys are listening and you know of one, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any movies that thought flat screen TVs were gonna, be an advancement. No one even thought that. It seems so simple. When you think about it, it's like, all right, TVs are big and square now. I bet at some point they won't need all that extra stuff and it'll just be a screen. But no one thought that, because every futuristic movie you watch that's long enough before flat screens started coming out, they just had more of them. Like I've seen like space movies where like in the spaceship they just have a bunch of shitty little TV, you know what I mean? Like they just didn't understand, Star Wars.
Well,
like it's like they're flying through space at light speed, but they have these like old,
that's right,
computers. Like no one could have seen that coming. So I think even like our phones, we think that's going to be forever,
right.
And
yeah, we don't know. We don't know. Yeah, we base everything on the past. What we know, we don't know what's going. We don't know what's coming around the corner.
I was talking with someone about when it comes to content online, obviously reels are the big thing now. If what I'm about to say ends up being interesting, this could be a reel, right? It's the big thing. That's the big thing. And some people think that it's going to last forever. I think what will eventually kill reels or vertical videos, at different places have different name for them. But what will eventually kill that is when we stop having rectangle phones. Right? It's already kind of moving that direction where we're starting to go back to flip phones. There's been a bunch of failed ones recently, but it's kind of nudging that direction. Where you have a bigger screen that opens up. I think it's going to happen eventually. We're headed towards something because there's no advantage no one wants to look at something on a small screen.
No,
it's just convenient. It's just convenient because we already have it. So when we get to the point where the concept of a screen, is maybe not that practical anymore, where you can just project something onto another surface, right? Or there's just so many screens everywhere, or like almost everything can be a screen. Then the concept of that will be gone too, and then that's the only advantage of a reel, just because it fits in your phone. That's it.
That's true, and that's the advantage. Yeah, the whole advantage of something that size is just because it's portable. Yeah, and
Right.
that's the reason you got the screen. And I'm kind of weird. I use it a lot, of course, for different things, but I don't use it for email unless I just really need to answer an email and I'm not near my laptop. I still like the large screen, and I can type.
Right.
That's one thing. It's what drew me to computers before most people, because I could type 100 words a minute. And so that was really an attraction for me to get a computer in 1980, 81. It's just for the writing, and then I started managing things with it and everything. But I still go back to my laptop. I'm on it most of the time rather than the phone, unlike a lot of people. But you're right. It's yeah, and looking at videos and different things. It's just a convenience. That's the only reason we're satisfied with them. Being rectangular. I guess.
Right.
I don't know what.
We're going to evolve past it.
It's hard to imagine what it will be. I'll be glad for it to be a bigger screen. Now, some things when you turn it, a regular video, when you turn it sideways, it's not too bad.
It's not
you
too
got
bad.
A decent sized phone,
But it is just convenient. It's just because we already have
Yeah.
it. I think to me the two directions that I see it going, and again, it could be a total like something we can't even imagine. We can't even imagine. But the two directions that I can at least perceive is one, like I said, there's like some kind of hologram screen that looks just as good, or surfaces of things.
Right.
Can
Maybe the bill of my hat will be the screen. You pull it down. I don't know, something.
Yeah, or just houses updated to the point where, like I said, like your coffee table and every wall or anything, you can just put a screen there.
Or maybe your phone, it doesn't change all that much, or it gets smaller, and it projects, like you said, to any surface you want, and you're looking at full size or something.
And the other one to me is the other option is some sort of augmented reality where you have either contacts or the implant, in the brain that Elon Musk is working on. I'll tell you something I've not heard anyone say yet when talking about the implant thing. I would not get one of those, because how do we know that that's going to be necessary to do that? Like the thing that the implant can do, how do we know that it's always going to need to be implanted in your brain? You know what I mean? It seems like the technology would eventually get to where it can just send a signal into your head. Like maybe you put it under your skin, or it's just a hat you wear. That's a big leap to have something surgically put in your head.
Quite.
Imagine you got outdated technology in your brain.
Yeah, really. And then who's in control of that? What's in there?
Oh, we know who's in control.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, that's what comes up with AI. They've done a lot of questioning and everything with that, and it seems to have a certain political bent quite often. And so, who's going to trust it? It probably won't be something I'll have to deal with, but yeah, but we can't. Yeah, you're right. We can't envision it. Who 50 years ago or 30 would have thought that everybody would carry one of these around and put up with it? The inconvenience, and even though they're small, just have one all the time everywhere you go.
Right.
So you don't know.
Yeah. It's crazy and the AI thing with the political side of it is scary, because they're already basically reprogramming society based on social media. I mean, God, the way that the algorithms work, and we talked about that last time, but it's just it's very frustrating how much control all that has over it. It used to be right that people talked more and had more experiences that were shared. So it's like they could put propaganda in the news and things, and maybe some in movies, but it was a little bit of a tougher thing to penetrate the human, whatever psyche. But now it's so
90% of our input is infected or determined by other people.
Exactly.
And technology giants. Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful thing, but wow, we are really and it's so convenient, and there's so many good sides to it. We're not going to give it up.
Right.
But it is so interesting, isn't it? How as everybody knows, you're looking at certain kinds of videos, or you're whatever you're talking about. You're searching for a new ice cooler or whatever it is. Well, you're going to get ads on that. It's just feeds you more and more of what you have been looking at.
Right.
It's an
exactly.
interesting situation.
It is, and it's
really useful, but
right. And it's how is it going to impact? I mean, that's to me is a serious question that needs to be asked. Is like, how is that over time and AI, being to me like a big booster to this whole problem, going to impact like guns and gun rights, in the future.
And any kind of rights. I mean, it's like it's steroids with AI.
Yeah, because haven't they already? Like you were saying, they've proved that it has a political leaning.
Yeah,
because it's nothing magical about it. It's just it's all of our information, and it's whoever owns it can kind of steer it in a certain direction.
Yeah.
I don't believe that AI is a sentient being.
And the scary thing here, it's a generalization, but it seems to me that I don't know which generation to slam. I don't know. But it still seems that
all of them probably
that a lot of because they've grown up. It's because they've grown up with the social media. I don't know. People seem more like robots to me in a lot of ways, and just not free thinkers. It seems, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me there are not as many individuals and free thinkers in today's world,
right.
And they're going to be influenced even more.
Yeah.
You and I have discussions about a lot of people above 30 or 40 have discussions about this and are really concerned about it and are aware of how we're being influenced and don't like it and try to resist it in ways and work around it. And we're just really aware of it. And probably not totally aware of everything. Right. But what about the, I don't know, 15-year-old or the 20-year-old that, well, I don't know, they don't think much about anything.
Yeah. Oh, I think about the things I thought even 10 years ago. I mean, it's like, when you're young, you just haven't experienced enough life.
To add to your point there, with the younger generation and technology, it's effectively created a hive mind. Because all of them are seeing the same content, thinking the same. It even groups them together by their interest. So whatever their likes are, their dislikes, it puts them in a echo chamber of the people that echo those same sentiments.
Yep. It really does.
I've always felt like, the reason that even going back to the beginning of propaganda, however far back it goes, 50s or before, the reason it's effective is because it understands whoever is engineering this propaganda, right, has to understand human psychology.
Yep.
And not everyone is a psychology major, myself included, and you're not either, right? So we don't always even know why we're being influenced by things or even know what to look out for. And it was dangerous enough when just a regular minded person was doing it, but now if AI, the amount of calculations that can be put behind something, it's even scarier.
Yep, we're easily influenced. I've always been interested in psychology, and I feel like I have a pretty good radar for it, but I'm sure sense everything. For many decades I've been fascinated by commercials and the psychology behind them, and recognizing it when I see it and how they're influencing us. And I mean, back in the days of black and white TV, it was just since I was in 25 or so, I remember reading about some of that and things I hadn't thought about, the way they influence you. And when you look at a commercial critically or anything, but a commercial is a good example, of course. The looks of the people that are chosen, every word. As an English major, I've always found that interesting, and used to talk about that in classes. From being a comic and making up jokes and things, one word can make such a difference in how something goes over, how it influences people, and in terms of whether or not what they're saying is actually true or it can be fact checked. It's just really the music. I always talk about the drug ads. It's so funny. There's so much money to be made by selling vaccines or drugs or whatever.
Right.
So much money goes into those things, and they run all the time. And it's always people. It depends on what age group they're trying to target. Of course, someone who might have diabetes or whatever, type 2 diabetes, and they got people who are a little hefty, of course, and they're usually really active, in those commercials, and they're dancing around, and really active, doing interesting things, playing a saxophone. And there's quite often, most of the time almost, there's some really cool classic rock music playing, you know. I mean, the whole package comes at you, you know. You could be cool too and wear this hipster hat. You could be cool like these people if you were taking this drug.
Right.
And you wouldn't have to worry about overeating. You just take this drug, you know.
Right.
You'd be one of these cool people.
Yeah, and even when you see it and you understand it, I feel like it still kind of nudges you a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, like the old classic commercials that I love, we just don't see as much anymore. Where it'd be like a ad for like a better type of broom or something, you know, and it shows the old style and they're struggling with it in black and white, you know. It's like, oh, I don't want to use my broom in the 50s, you know. I got to get a new broom.
Yeah,
my broom needs to be in HD. I want a full HD
I don't
broom.
want a black and white broom.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, you know, you see, and it's like they're not dumb. They know that people see what they're doing, but it still affects you.
I know.
You know, even if you see it, I feel like.
If you just, I think in some ways it should help. You know, everybody's in media now. Everybody's got a podcast or doing videos. It seems like, and you know how things go if you are trying to sell something,
right.
And you know the production side of it.
Yeah.
So you understand the production. If you keep that in mind, it helps. But yeah, we're always influenced. You know, if I'm trying to decide on a guitar, you know, and I come over here and we're playing one of your guitars or something, or it's like kind of like, that's pretty neat. You can play it well, whatever. It's going to influence, you know, what I buy, you know.
I'll tell you, something of the algorithm things popped in my head. What bugs me is like, we've had a lot of discussions about this and, you know, some disagreement to a degree, but, you know, the way that the algorithms work now is in the same vein, right? Like on YouTube and different things, you know, and what's frustrating about that is like for example, I think this is a good comparison. So nowadays like there's certain types of thumbnails that the algorithm favors over others, right? And I don't necessarily think that people prefer, like there are things that the algorithm prefers based on what they're choosing to show to more people that I don't think actual people prefer, right?
Right.
So the algorithm is choosing things for you. It's not just basing it off of popularity. Yeah. It's deciding like I think YouTube, you know, for example, made a conscious decision. We think our page and website looks better when people have this type of thumbnail. So we're going to reward the people that have that thumbnail more, regardless of whether people actually prefer it or not. We're going to reward that. And what it reminds me of is, like, for example, again, to compare it to comedy, when you're coming up, and you get an opportunity to maybe like open for a big comedian or your host or something like that, right? And you're not anyone that has any pull or at all. You know, sometimes it's good if you dress kind of nice, right? Because you're representing yourself well, and there's a lot of comedy clubs that expect you to do that. They expect you to kind of wear a nice shirt, not look like a slob, right? But once you become a headliner, everyone's coming to see you. You're the guy. You can do whatever the hell you want.
That's right.
You can go up there with no shirt on if you want to. It doesn't matter as long as it's not illegal, right? Yep. Doesn't matter. They're just here to see your art. They don't care what you look like,
That's right.
But when you're beholden to what the club wants, you have to kind of play by their rules. So what's frustrating about that is in our case, or in especially a professional creator's case, see, we're the headliner. This is our show. This is our thing, But they're treating us like the opener by telling us what we have to do.
Yeah, controlling that. Yeah.
And that's always bothered me, because it's like YouTube basically is trying to be a TV network essentially, and a lot of these social media things, because I think they don't like that they don't have as much control as a TV network does. Where if you have a show on a TV network, they can kick you off if they don't like you. Like, oh, you can't put your show on our network, And it's a problem because it's not free and open. They have a monopoly. They own the market. These big social media companies.
Yeah. The algorithm either favors you or it doesn't. And you're right. It's hard for me to imagine, like on thumbnails, for example, that people really like some of those thumbnails.
There's no way they do.
There's no way they do. Maybe there's a level of people that do, perhaps, are influenced heavily by that. But oh man,
I think it's strictly the algorithm. I don't think people give a shit.
Yeah.
I don't think people care. I don't care. If I see a snazzy thumbnail, it does nothing to me.
Me either.
I don't care.
The
I almost
crazy faces and all that.
Yeah, I'm almost
give me a break.
I'm almost more
Yeah,
likely.
it turns me off. Actually.
Yeah, I'm almost more likely to see that and think like, they're trying to like sell me. It's probably not going to be that good. They're trying to, But it's changing now because it's like you kind of almost have to do it to a certain degree because again, it's like it's just another example of how it's like why is it that as the years go by, everything that used to be cool gets lame and it just gets controlled and ruined.
Yep.
It's like everyone's trying to control everything, and it's like, why can't some things just be cool? It's so frustrating.
Yeah, just well, that's it. And I can see that in comedy, especially. I don't know
Like that. The example I use for the club, like I get that. They're a business. They could find 1,000 other people to open this show.
Right.
So you got to do what they say. I understand that. You're working for them. But if you're selling tickets, if people are walking through that door to see you, then you're a private contractor. You're not working for that club.
That's right.
I mean, they could still, if you did something too crazy, they could be like, we're not going to have you back here. But for the most part, you're kind of an independent contractor.
Right.
You're doing your own thing.
Exactly. And they want you to be you,
Right.
whatever it is.
Exactly.
Whatever your image is, that's what you're going to be.
Exactly. You have to like earn that,
Yeah.
But that's again the problem with social media is the way they control it now. No one gets to earn that.
Yeah. That's too bad. Yeah.
It's very frustrating. It'll change at some point, hopefully.
Hopefully. And that's what I like about what we've done. I've been able to be myself, and so have you. I mean,
that's what makes it good. I think that's what's I don't know how good this podcast is, but that's what's great about podcasts. I think, and why even though people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, podcasts continue to be popular is because it is one of the few ways you can access like real people having real conversations.
Yes.
Without all the other influences, getting in there as much, depending on the show.
I think there's a place for everything. Like the reels, the shorts.
Yeah.
We all watch those things too. And then I listen to watch a lot of podcasts, like that. And like an average length video if it's something I'm interested in. So there's a place for it all.
Right.
And the podcasts are good because, they can't really be scripted. You're sitting around yakking for an hour. They cannot be scripted. So you get it's the reason I think enjoy it. Shows like Johnny Carson, I don't watch variety shows, things like that really much, night shows and things. But
he was so
the reason
natural.
that was so popular was like, name anybody, where else are you going to have like John Wayne, or whoever, some actor, a comedian, George Carlin, sitting down and having a conversation, like with Johnny Carson or somebody, even though some of that's pre-planned, I guess, but still they're sitting there and someone else may say something, ask a question or whatever, because they're always on their show. That was one of the few chances you got to see those people actually having a little conversation with somebody. But with podcasts, it is great. And there are a lot of people that do great podcasts, but then they also have other folks on there, famous people or whoever it might be, interviewing them or just having that same conversation. Yeah. I mean, Brad Pitt's probably been on a podcast somewhere, just having an hour-long conversation with someone, like with Joe Rogan or somebody. And, you really get the feel, you know them better,
Right. Yeah. I picked the worst time to try to take a drink. I was like, all right, right as you finish talking. But yeah, you're right. That's what makes them interesting. And obviously there are some podcasts that do seem a little bit more like, okay, it's a little more Hollywooded up, but most of them, again, it would be very difficult to Hollywood up a podcast.
I was going to say, if you're someone that's got to be kind of scripted, you don't really, you're not comfortable just having a casual conversation. I don't know how you'd enjoy a podcast.
Imagine like a 2-hour scripted podcast, how difficult that would be.
You highly edited. 3 years to make.
You'd be listening to the news.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll never do it, but I've maybe someone else already has, but I've always just had this idea that I've always thought would be funny if you made a podcast and it's not even a real podcast, like, because people like I do and other podcasters, you cut up clips from it or reels or whatever, and you cut up all these like segments. that look like they're from a podcast that you're trying to promote, but there's no podcast.
That's right.
And it is scripted. You just script these like 4-minute, 5-minute conversations, and people go try to find the podcast or find the episode, and it just doesn't exist.
Well, I know. I have seen pieces of podcasts posted like that. Several pieces. What happens to me most often is not I see the segment and then I'm looking for the original. More often, it's have I seen that before? It's a podcast I've listened to and watched, and then a month later, here comes up a maybe a 5-minute segment. Okay, there's that podcast. Well, okay, that's a seg. And then another segment, and then it's interesting. And then some people, I guess, pirate the podcast. There'd be I was watching one the other day. Okay, I guess I thought I'd seen this. It's a different interview with him, and no, it's just someone else posted it. It's crazy.
And like I think the term is freebooting, where people will take content and try to use it, pass it off. Not even that they're passing it off as their own work. They're just trying to get views to make money on their own platform or whatever channel. But podcasting uniquely, not to speak for everyone, but I think podcasting is unique in that way where no one cares if you do that.
Yeah,
because everyone is trying to. Because everyone is trying to kind of, spread their podcast like seeds to get people to listen to the full episode. So anyone that takes a clip and steals it and puts it on their thing, it's like, have fun with it.
Yeah.
It's more people are going to be exposed to it.
That's about the only way I see Joe Rogan anymore. I don't really go to Spotify. It was, I don't know, something convoluted about that when I had that on my phone. But I'll see pieces of interviews he does that someone else posts, or I think maybe he actually posts some pieces of it. I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah, on YouTube you can still watch the clips from his podcast that he'll post, and then because they used to be on YouTube and now not. No, Spotify. I don't know. I use it. I listen to them on there. I gotten used to it.
I need to give it a shot.
You can still watch the video on there. It's not bad.
I had it on my phone, and I found it difficult to find various podcasts that he did. I don't know.
That is harder, yeah.
And then also it was trying to play music when they didn't want it to come on and play. And I didn't like the way it did the music. Yeah. It recommended for me. No, I don't want that. I want to pick the songs I like, put them in a playlist and play them like I did on my, what was it called, iPod, or were they iPods?
Right.
All these track
8-track player, you mean?
All the yeah. I wish I could find that iPod. I remember buying that about 20 years ago, I guess. And I had bought songs from iTunes, unlike other people, pirating them at the time on Napster. Was that it?
That was one of them.
Can't believe
LimeWire was the big one too.
Yeah. But I actually would pay my 99 cents, and I had my favorite country songs, my favorite rock songs, and everything on there. And I loved that. I had some great songs on that. I don't know what happened to it.
But I thought, it's funny, I always have to bring this up when LimeWire comes up. I thought I was the most clever person in the world because, LimeWire was obviously like back when you couldn't just listen to any music, you download it illegally on there. And, but they had a paid version of it, like a premium version, right? That you had to pay for to download. And I downloaded the paid version on the free version, which to me is so funny because it's also hilarious that something that exists to steal is trying to charge you money. It's like, no, people are just going to steal that. You know what I mean? It'd be like trying to sell burglary tools. What if you had a store that sold nothing but burglary supplies? You think you're going to sell it? It's like, no, they're just going to break in and steal them.
That's a home.
They're burglars. That's what they do.
Home Depot hardware department. It's crazy. When I think about my dad, even just think of their life and the technology changes in there. Now there were changes. TVs came in and were popular, but wow, the different formats that I've gone through and you have even. In your life, and different things you have to get used to and adapt to, different computers and software and all that. I was cleaning out just this afternoon. I decided to, the DVD cabinet in the den there. That thing is chock full of. I need that space for something else. So, get some cardboard boxes. I'm going to put those the basement or in a storage somewhere. I don't. It just finally occurs to me I am not going to be playing those DVDs.
Yeah.
And so that's just space wasted.
Yeah.
And I can put some other things in there. So I got cardboard boxes and filled them up. There was a lot of them in there, a lot of them. I didn't count them, but it was really interesting pulling those things out.
Yeah.
So you hadn't laid eyes on a lot of them either in years,
right.
and I hadn't, and dug those things out. And I, Hanny Calder and True Grit and 3 copies of that, and Westerns, everything.
Those old DVD boxes with the little flap.
Yeah. Oh man, just the progression. There were just your plain DVDs, of course.
Yeah.
And then I run across the same title. Sometimes because I couldn't find it or forgot I had it, or I bought it again, maybe. I guarantee you there are some movies, some of the popular Westerns or whatever, that I probably have 2 copies of it, just the regular DVD, and then a copy on Blu-ray there. Maybe 2 copies.
VHS also.
Yeah, DVD. And a VHS, I guarantee you, I didn't go through, but I bet you there is at least one movie, maybe, I don't know, Outlaw Josie Webb or something, where I have the Chris threw a lot of those away. I don't know whenever that was, but there were a few VHS tapes in there. Probably have the VHS version, probably the regular DVD, and probably the Blu-ray. And also I have it purchased on Amazon. I guarantee you that same movie.
Yeah.
So gone through that.
Damn.
Wow.
It's funny. I remember when I first started comedy, I used to have this joke. I stopped doing it. I felt like I outgrew it, but it's kind of a funny idea that I used to do. And I would say, I can't remember exactly how it went, but the basic idea was like I'm so lazy that I saw a movie I wanted to watch that was for sale on Amazon, to rent for like $5. And I had the movie on Blu-ray, but just so I didn't have to get up off the couch and get it and like put it into the player, I just paid the $5 to rent the movie on Amazon.
Well, I've done that, but it's just so I have it,
Yeah.
And of course, I have a DVD player still plugged into my TV. I guess a lot of people don't. But there's sometimes you'll run across a movie. I like to have that because I forgot what was it. It was a movie with Charles Bronson. I can't think. Night something.
Death Wish.
No. It was he's up in the mountains and
Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah, no, it's a interesting movie. You don't see it. It's not available. I couldn't even buy it on Amazon. So I bought it on DVD. I think I ordered on Amazon DVD like a year ago. But I think we might be smart to keep a DVD around. Who knows?
Yeah, never know.
I mean, it's a physical thing.
Yeah.
You could not be connected to anything.
Yeah.
Internet totally down, grid down. As long as you got electricity, you could tune up a DVD.
That's true. I mean, I bought this movie on Amazon. It's one of my favorite Vietnam movies, by the way. I think I got you to watch it once. It's called The Siege at Firebase Gloria.
Okay,
it's got Arlie Ermy in it, a couple other people that are noteworthy. I can't remember, but I love it. It's I wouldn't describe it as a B grade movie. You can tell it's a little bit lower budget, but it still is it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. And the reason I think a lot of people don't know about it is because it didn't get a lot of TV play. And when you watch the movie, you'll see why. It's got some of the most graphic Vietnam scenes.
Really?
Oh man, it's brutal. So I bought that movie on Amazon, and then it just got removed from Amazon. Right, so I couldn't even watch it on there. I was like, I paid for this movie, and now I can't watch it. But it eventually came back. So that kind of made me. I started kind of buying less stuff after that. I was like, I don't like that.
Well, I remember you telling me. I don't know if it was that movie, but just or maybe it happened to me. An actual movie that just disappeared from when you bought. That it's not there anymore. I don't like that either.
Yeah.
I mean, that ought to be forever.
Yeah.
You ought to be able to even transfer it. Like if Amazon's not a thing in 5 years, you ought to be able to, I'm tired of buying the VHS, Blu-ray, and, so many different versions of the same movie.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Rough Riders is another one like that. I had that like VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. Now it's on Amazon. I want those. I want that to be the last place where I buy some of these movies.
Right. Yeah.
How come that we don't see more Revolutionary War movies? Why is that? That was the ultimate victory. That was a happy ending.
Yeah, really.
We got that one. Why don't you see that?
Yeah, The Patriot is so good. Maybe
That's a good one,
can't beat hard to beat that one.
Well, yeah, not politically correct, But maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to fund the movie, the production. Obviously, some producer, money people put the money behind movies like that, and someone's got to be motivated to do it.
yeah.
You think Vietnam? So Vietnam was, I mean, the conflict itself was bad enough, in the way they fought that war. It was so gritty and so nasty. But on the state side as well, the state side was just full of protest, and it was just an odd time.
Yeah, it was. It was. You would think there'd be more movies about all those times. I don't know. Well, I don't know what that would be. War movies tend to do well. They do well, and there's a wide audience. Maybe the audience is not as wide though in the younger generation, like Gen Z, even millennials. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a weird concept too, because the younger generation, I feel like, and I could be wrong, but they are more desensitized to violence than we were growing up, because they have more media content like video games and things like that. That's just more available.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't make sense. Maybe more of them don't envision themselves ever being in the military or something. Like I don't know. Like my whole life, that was always a possibility that I would be drafted. If something pops up, I didn't.
The Revolutionary
War. You're just
War?
naturally interested in.
You don't think you would have just joined in the revolution?
Yeah, I think I might have.
You had to be. Imagine that, getting drafted in the Revolutionary War and then being pissed off about it. Like, oh, come on, damn it,
Go to Canada.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There weren't many draft dodgers during the Revolutionary War, I don't think.
Oh, I know.
Well, no, there were people loyal to the British. I mean,
Yeah.
did happen,
Absolutely.
There's always been those people. There was people that protested World War II. It doesn't get talked about as much. Not on the level of Vietnam, obviously.
Right.
That was a whole different ballgame. I've always thought it's well, maybe funny is you gotta watch me. I hang out with comedians too much, so I think horrific things are funny in a way that would offend most people. But I've always thought it was interesting that Vietnam was the first war we brought cameras to, and that just so happened to be the first bad one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the first war we actually filmed out. That was the ugly one right there. The one, what are the odds that the first one we filmed happened to be really ugly?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
In World War II there was some just horrific atrocities and things that went on. Well, obviously we know on the other side, but on our side too.
Oh yes. Think about it now too. There's just so much media and so many ways to get footage of everything that it's a different world.
Yeah, and this whole thing, not to get in the weeds of this too far, but I mean the whole thing with what's going on right now in Gaza and Israel and all that. It's been kind of fascinating to watch as someone who does, like, my take on it is I don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it. That really is my take, and it's not me being scared to have an opinion on it. It's literally like I don't know enough about it. Yeah. But I am having a lot of fun just sitting back and watching people destroy themselves. Not the war. Let me clarify that. I mean, like, people in this country fighting over, being pro Hamas or pro Israel or whatever. And it's been very fascinating to see those lines, because it's kind of unique because the lines are happening like within certain parties. They're not as much left and right, And it's kind of fun to watch people trying to navigate all that.
Yeah, it is more of a left-right thing, but
more than not. But I've seen a lot on both sides. Because I mean, there's a lot of very liberal Jewish people who are not pro Hamas.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a mess.
It is.
War is hell. That's another line I made up.
Yeah, it's a good one. The thing is, it's people are, they just don't. They're so quick to be like, I want to be correct. You know what I mean? That especially these days, it's like people are they're kind of clout chasing You know, want to be like, I'm one of the good guys. I'm one of the good guys. You know, and that's one thing I like about what's happening with this is that it's not clear. So people are kind of confused and not sure what to do. You saw that video I sent you in Chicago of like these pro Hamas protesters. They just shut down traffic. You know, people trying to get out of town for Christmas and go to the airport, and they just.
That's one way to win friends and influence people.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't care I don't care. Like if I heard a bunch of Second Amendment supporters were going to go shut down the road, I'd be like, "What are you doing?" No,
I'd be mad at them. That's right.
Yeah, it's crazy. That was one thing I did want to actually bring up on the show. I thought it would be interesting to talk about something that's been kind of bothered. It's always bothered me, but so like within the gun community, I feel like people are very like they're not very open-minded within the gun community, you know, and I feel like that's a big problem that could really split us apart and make us a lot weaker, you know, like speaking from the perspective of someone who's pro Second Amendment and supports gun rights, because of how almost militant, maybe that's the wrong word, but like people are when it comes to things, like when it comes to any sort of differences whatsoever, you know.
Oh yeah.
Like for example, I'll bring up the what's the guy's name? I just blanked on Kennedy something, not John F. Kennedy, but what's the guy? MMA fighter. He's been on Rogan a bunch of times.
It's a simple name, like
I know.
Mike or something, isn't it?
Yeah, why am I blanking on his first name?
I know who you mean. Yeah.
Something Kennedy. I keep wanting to say Ted Kennedy, but it's not.
Me too.
It's
Tim. It's Tim.
Tim
That's
Kennedy.
Right. That's why I wanted to say Ted.
Yeah,
too.
Tim. There we go. Tim Kennedy. Right. I know there's people have different grievances with him for all different reasons or whatever. But so he went on a podcast, you know, and this is old news to everyone, but it's an example I want to use for this. He went on a podcast years ago, and it was actually Lance Armstrong of all people. And he went on there and said that he didn't think that anyone under 21 should be allowed to buy an AR-15.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Now I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, my stance on that has always been: once you're an adult, you're an adult.
Right.
And you're an adult at 18, so you should be able to buy anything that an adult can buy. But here's the thing: this guy is a combat veteran. He's been on Joe Rogan a bunch of times. He's very media exposed. You know, he's been on, you know, he's a UFC fighter and all this kind of stuff. You know, and that's as extreme to my knowledge, as extreme as he gets when it comes to any sort of like pro gun control
limitations on
right.
Yeah.
And if you think about how most people in the country are that are not gun nuts like us, that's a pretty pro gun guy right there. You know what I mean? Like most people would think he was extreme. You know, and the fact that we just cast someone out. Yeah. For having even the slightest bit of a disagreement, you know, is just crazy to me. And their philosophy is going to be, you know, we don't have room for anyone who is not full, you know, a Second Amendment supporter. And who decides what that is, first of all,
right?
Because they think it's worse than someone who is anti-gun, which I don't agree with that.
Yeah, but you know, it's a psychology of humans. You know, you think any group that is, I don't know, have circled the wagons more or less, whether it's a political party, whether it's the issue of abortion, or you name anything, you know, drinking, whatever it is, you know, this thing develops within that group, that tribe, and that political party, whatever it might be, where it is very difficult for anybody to deviate from the narrative, you know, even one bit, or they're ostracized. You know, so it's not just the Second Amendment community, of course, but yeah, it is definitely. You can't, you know, we've stepped in at a time or two in a minor way, what you would think would be minor, you know, but yeah,
and it was even, and that was a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's very little tolerance for any diversity among
And
thinking.
I consider that to be a toxic trait of the gun community.
Yeah.
And I don't care how much people hate me for
It's a
it.
toxic trait of people.
It is. People should be allowed to disagree, and it's still kind of like a family to that extent. You know, and it's my rebuttal to the whole thing of like, you know, someone who's not 100% pro gun and they're worse than someone who's anti-gun because because their fear is that, you know, that's going to steer the narrative more in their direction or whatever. I totally disagree, because I think you're better off to have anyone in the fold that's willing, because you're much more likely for someone to start to see things the way you do if they're around you than if they're not, right?
Yeah.
Because honestly, if I was Tim Kennedy and I don't know how like heavily involved he was in the gun community or world, you know, before all that. But if I was Tim Kennedy, I could almost see, and I wasn't like super diehard, I could almost see like getting pissed off and be like, well, fuck you guys then.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, being ostracized just for something as simple as that, you know, that's a good way to just turn people the other direction. It's a good way to make enemies out of people. And that really bothers me. I hate that.
Particularly someone who's famous, you know, because you want them, you
Right.
want to keep them on your side, and yeah,
Like it used to irritate me, like with Collion Noir, you know, how whatever people get mad at him for this or that. And it's like, this guy is on Joe Rogan and Fox News, you know, two of the largest platforms on the planet.
yeah,
And he's fighting for our gun rights, you know, and sticking up for us. And,
yeah,
you know, and just because there's one little thing that people disagree with, they're willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. These people feel like it undermined the cause or something. You know, machine guns are kind of in that category. You can find people who are pro Second Amendment, you know,
Totally.
and they got guns and all that, but I don't know about machine guns. People shouldn't. I see those comments, you know, on our videos, machine gun videos. And nobody needs one of those, you know. There's that
Right.
need again, yeah.
And it's like, why can't we just respectfully disagree?
Yeah.
You know, I would never consider that person like,
An enemy, you know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we can respectfully disagree. I think it's just that a lot of people just have to just go crazy when they see anybody that doesn't toe the 100% line, you know.
it scares people off, you know, because if the idea is to, like, there's a good and bad to the proliferation of gun culture. The good is it's more good than bad, because the good is that it's helped us retain our rights because of how big and mainstream it's become.
Yeah.
But in a certain level, it's become almost like more of a caricature of itself. It's gotten like kind of cartoonish almost, with like, you know, just I don't know, just there's like this whole culture around it that's like, I'm trying to think of how to describe it, where it's like, it's just like corny. It's like people are trying to prove like how much of a gun guy they are, kind of thing. You know, and part of it maybe is weird for me because I grew up around guns. I'm not like new to the guns, so I don't feel like I have to like reinforce an identity as a gun person.
Yeah.
You know?
I probably don't see a lot of that. I know. I don't know. You have to allow for some diversity, you know, within any group.
Right.
We're all, you know, fighting for the same cause, but
it's like this thing of like, you're not as guns as I am because you
I
don't
get
agree
where-
with everything I agree with, and it's just like that's bad.
Well, there
It's
is
not
this.
good.
There is this. Yeah, I call it the trying to out Second Amendment the other guy.
Right.
You
Right.
You
That's
get
a better
that.
way to say it.
You know, you do get that. Again,
Right.
it gives people a flag that they can.
Right.
In some ways, it's a little bit of the what do you call it? The when you know, people are not self. I don't know. They're just promoting themselves. You know, trying.
Right.
Yeah, you see it occasionally, like on our channel, or any channel, where somebody comes down. I've actually had people, over the years, you see a comment occasionally. Someone said, "Well, it's crazy that y'all can make all these videos, but how about doing something sometime? Do something. Why don't you think about doing something for the Second Amendment?"
Yeah. So crazy.
Yeah, we'll think about that. Yeah, get back to us when you've done a couple things yourself. Maybe.
Yeah, it's like, not to, it's a little bit self-serving to say this, but it's true. We've created a lot of gun owners over the years, especially with our style of content being definitely more conducive to people who are kind of new to firearms and getting into it, you know, and things like that. And that's what worries me, is that someone new, you know, coming along and they're, you know, they're not as hardcore as we are. They didn't grow up around guns and all this kind of stuff. They don't even have an AR yet. They just got some kind of pistol or something. They're just thinking about defending themselves, and they're not there yet, you know. And then they kind of start poking their head around at, you know, the gun culture, and then they start seeing all this kind of stuff, and it's like, oh man, it's scary. And then you know, it's bad.
And it does take a little time too, like you say, when you first, because when I was into firearms for a while before. When I would see, I can remember, because I've lived through this. I guess everybody does that's been into it for a while. But I remember I was into revolvers. Everybody was in revolvers in the early 70s. And I remember seeing an AR-15 in the gun shop there in Franklin, Tennessee, down in the basement. They had all these long guns down there at Battleground Armory. I remember looking around. You could walk down there and look at all those. Nobody even down there. It was funny. And I remember picking that thing up a time or two. Man, that was a weird thing. That's the military rifle. And I wasn't as familiar with it, you know, and I would not have bought that and walked out with it if I had the money, probably. I don't know. That seems a little extreme, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, but then I got more into guns, and people actually buy those kinds of things, and regular guys just shoot them. And yeah, you're right. People aren't there yet necessarily, and you don't want to alienate people.
Exactly, because it's about what you're used to and how you grow up. In the same way that, you know, the whole, like, you know, kind of trying to reinforce this identity of I'm Mr. Guns seems weird to me, because I don't know a world without always having guns, because I obviously grew up with you. You're my dad. Yeah. You had lots of. You already had that. You had already made that leap before I was born. So there's like that novelty is that type of novelty is not there. I love guns a lot, but I've never felt like I had to prove that to someone.
That's right.
You know, and in the same way, people that grow up not around those kind of guns, and they're scary. They're not. People aren't stupid for being afraid of something they don't understand, especially when that thing they don't understand is something that kills people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, God damn it. It's so frustrating how hard-headed, you know, we can be not understanding, right? I think it's a much better route to get more people on our side that will support our rights and help us keep these things.
Right.
So that we don't have to inevitably use the other part of the Second Amendment by just being a little more open and welcoming to those kind of people.
Oh, yeah. And I think most people are. It's like with any group, you could divide it up into 4 or 5 segments. You know, you're going to have, you got the same personalities in the firearms world that you have in the race car world, or any hobby. Yep. You're going to have guitar, music world. You're going to have people who are overbearing, not very tolerant of anybody who doesn't agree with, you know, that you're going to have the same people. And of course, as we all know, they can often be the loudest, and they may have a YouTube channel and have a big following, you know, social media. And so you're going to hear from the worst segments of any category, you know.
Yeah.
So just
I just wish, I don't know, I'd just like to see, I don't know, more understanding, I guess, of people having different opinions.
Yeah.
You know, within guns. That's just, I don't know how we go about that, you know, but and when I say understanding, I don't mean like compromising.
Right.
You know, I don't care what someone else thinks. I'm not going to change my opinion to like meet theirs. That's not what I mean at all. You know, I just mean like not basically, you know, just because someone has like, again, just like a slightly less pro-gun take on it as you, just being like, all right, well, you're not one of us at all.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I know some people who are really pro-gun, Second Amendment supporters, you know, hunt, shoot, and everything. They don't have a black rifle, you know, and not against them, but just don't have one, you know, and you know, it's just you don't want to alienate those people, you know. It's not like you're not something wrong with you. You don't have an AR. How about an AK? You don't have any of that stuff.
Right. I've had a lot of you know, like, you know, living in Chicago, you know, now a lot of the time I've had, you know, I do jokes about guns, and a lot of the other comedians, you know, obviously, as you can imagine, comedians living in Chicago, most of them pretty liberal, right? but they know I'm into guns because I can't really hide it. I do jokes about it. They see my social media and stuff. But I'll tell you a conversation that I've had with a ton of them. It'll go something like this, like, I'm not really into like, the assault rifles and things like that, but whatever. I don't know if people should have those, but I've been thinking about getting a handgun for defense,
Yeah.
So I could have easily been like, fuck you then,
That's right.
don't talk to me,
Yeah.
But no, I had to talk to those people. I helped them, or because I want them to get a gun. I know that it's a gateway drug.
I was going to say the same thing. That handgun's a gateway drug. That took the words out of my mouth.
It's a slippery slope. We talk about that all the time in the other direction. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What about that? What about that? Everyone always says, it's a slippery slope. If someone doesn't agree with everything, what about the other slippery slope that goes the other direction?
Yeah, because I've slid down that slippery slope, and
Right.
we all do. Yeah, and that's always been my take. We want everybody to feel welcome at our channel, for example. And if you get a gun, one gun, it leads to others, and then it just starts it ball rolling, and then you immediately. I always feel like someone who has a non-gun owner who is not going to vote pro-gun, put it that way. Well, once you get a firearm, you own it, then those anti-gun proposals are going to hit you a different way.
Yep.
When that same politician that you formerly voted for or you like is up talking about taking away your firearm, or restricting your rights with that firearm, and you have, in the short month you've had that handgun,
Right.
maybe it's just some basic revolver or whatever it is, you kind of like it. You're really enjoying the shooting stuff, and having that defensive firearm, and you might be thinking about some other guns already. And I don't know. I voted for that guy. He didn't seem to like my guns. I feel like we've jumped a major hurdle there, getting a gun in their hands.
And one thing too, I think people haven't considered, because I try not to have a super right-left perspective on things, because I don't really think that way, but I'm going to address it that way because that's how other people think, so these, like, so I'm the worst at setting this thing up, but basically people will say, I've heard a lot of people say this, I don't care if you have guns or how much you say you support the Second Amendment. If you vote Democrat, you don't support the Second Amendment. Right. There's a ton of people that believe that. There's probably a lot of people watching right now that think that wholeheartedly. But there's a second option that I think a lot of people don't consider, is that if someone is a liberal and they vote for the Democratic candidate because that's who reflects their views the most, but they like guns, they've fallen down that slippery slope the other way. Well, the other option is Democratic candidates that are pro-gun, right?
Right.
Because think about it. That's how it could shift. Like, let's say if guns became a thing that crosses the aisles, where like, now most liberals are wanting to have guns now. Well, that means there's going to have to be liberal candidates that are, obviously pro whatever the different, the liberal viewpoints are on other things, but they're pro-gun. So then that'll be the choice within their own party. It's like the anti-gun liberal or the pro-gun liberal. And then who knows? There could be a world where in a presidential election, you have a liberal president and a conservative president, but both are pro-gun.
Right. Could be.
And then that's no longer a thing we have to fight over.
Right.
Now that's a fantasy, but it's still, but still at the local level, I don't know. I just hate that. Again, it's like throw the baby out with the bathwater. If someone likes guns or they're willing to learn, they're interested, it's like, they should be welcome, I think.
Absolutely. We need to help them all we can.
Yeah.
Get them into it.
And even people who are like diehard gun guys, if whatever, they say something that, you may not agree with, fine, disagree with them, but they're still one of us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's too much division already in the world amongst every group. And I get wary. I get weary of it. Not wary of, but I get weary of it. I really do. I always have. And I'm not as good as a lot of people are, but, the gun debate, arguing it. And I just been doing that so many years and decades. Yeah. I just buy a gun. Look, it seems like most people have a gun. Most people have some interesting guns now. If it's just a carry gun or permit, with a the rise in violence and just to feel safer. So many people, liberal or conservative, are either buying a gun, thinking about a gun, and just get a gun, enjoy it, and defend yourself, and feel better, sleep better at night, and it's setting a good example. That's the best I think we can do.
And I'll tell you, these politicians that are soft on crime, a lot of times they are also very anti-gun.
Yes,
and they're kind of shooting themselves in the in the foot.
Yep, they are.
Why did I say put? Shooting themselves in the foot.
Putting themselves in the shit.
Yeah. And I think I was thinking ahead of myself because I was going to say no pun intended, and that's where put came from. But they are shooting themselves in the foot by being soft on crime and being anti-gun, because now there's all this crime, and people are like, I got to defend myself.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with, again, obviously Chicago is like not as dangerous as people make it out to be. It's not even the most dangerous city, but it is dangerous, and a lot of things happen there. And I'll tell you what, I've talked about this a lot on podcasts, but it's like there's a more like close to home sort of element to the crime there. I mean, I was at a bar just a few weeks ago, and the bar was open, but their doors were locked. They were like letting people in.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because they're afraid of getting robbed.
Like, yeah.
I've been to some sketchy bars around the country, but I never had seen that.
That's like I've seen coin shops like that, or jewelry stores.
Where they buzz you in.
Buzz you in.
Yeah, they just didn't have a buzzer there, so they were just kind of creating that on their own. But
wow,
so people, it's a real fear there. I mean, they're like armed robbery, carjacking is like Chicago, and that's a more recent thing that since the pandemic. And a lot of the locals have kind of filled me in on that because obviously I'm new to the city. Like the murder rate has always been crazy in Chicago because of there's like some power structure issues with the gangs there. So on the south and the west side, like the murder is pretty crazy. But as far as like the other nicer areas, like the crime apparently was usually pretty low there. But in the last 2 or 3 years, the armed robberies and carjacking has just skyrocketed like in those areas.
Wow.
Where normally you would think are safe.
That's bad because a firearm, you want a firearm, but it doesn't solve all those problems. That needs to be dealt with.
Because they roll really deep,
Yeah,
4 or 5 guys pop out on a car on you.
Oh, I know it.
But if more people, if like everyone had a gun or more people had guns, some people would try, and they're just the resistance would
where it doesn't go so well for some bad guys occasionally,
Yeah,
and all that, it's all blown out of proportion now with the defund the police and whether you like the police or not, I'm afraid they're a necessary evil.
Yeah.
And you need to have that deterrent. And then with the firearms, carjacking is one of the scary ones. You feel like when you're in your home, you keep doors locked and be aware. It's a little bit less likely to happen.
Yeah.
And if you're prepared for that, but when you're in a car, it like say they swarm on you, 3 or 4. Even with a firearm, you might
have
be
to. In Chicago, you kind of have to drive defensively, thinking about carjacking. So, when I'm driving the city, I'm constantly checking my mirrors.
Yeah.
I find myself being a safer driver in Chicago.
Yeah, really.
Because I'm looking out for carjackers, and I see other cars too. So maybe that'd be funny if if the rate of carjacking goes up, the rate of like accidents goes down because people are just so aware and alert.
It's like COVID. I haven't had a cold in 5 years. I don't know if it's COVID somehow.
Yeah, like no car's gonna like pull out in front of you or surprise you if you're like looking out for carjackers.
Yeah.
But there's different things you do. Is like you keep like coming up to a light is always the scariest spot, I think.
Yes.
Oh my God, there's nothing scarier to me in Chicago, and I've been stuck in these situations a few times when these all these little bridges everywhere in that city, and they're all like rusty and dilapidated, which really adds to the look of it being scary. Anyways, it's like 2 a.m. and like, the city is crazy. There'll just be like traffic at 2 a.m. Stuff like that, and you'll be like stuck underneath one of those bridges, and they're like, "Oh, this is where they get me."
That's right. I do that even in Nashville in some areas of town. You got to be aware because
keep the space between the cars
space between you and the car ahead of you and everything, and then that way. You know, and you look around, if someone pulls up and it's looking like, and they're starting to get out or whatever, and being aware of that intersection too, if it's, the light's red, but there's not really any cross traffic or something, just a situation where you can just buzz on and run the light.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
Just know your surroundings.
Absolutely.
Because you're in that car, that 2,000-pound machine, you use it or whatever it weighs.
Yeah.
But
that's
scary, the carjackings.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Because I don't want to end up in jail as much as, oh man, you shouldn't have to put up with that. And, but then again, boy, it'd be easy to act maybe too quickly or fire, in a situation where maybe you shouldn't. And then again, you're in a city, and guess what? Prosecutors looking for a cause celeb, and they're anti-gun probably, and you were just trying to defend yourself, and they're going to put the screws to you.
Yeah, and these guys, they have. Here's what you got to understand is like gangs. There are a lot of them. It's a lot of times it's kids doing this stuff, so they have not only the protection that they feel like of the fact that the cops don't really want to do anything in those big cities. And they're kids, so they know that they'll not get in as much trouble. And another thing, because there's a big group of them, none of them wants to be seen as weak.
Right.
Because the word's going to get around in their circle. You know what I mean?
That's right.
they it's kind of like they got a job to do kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if you find yourself in that situation and you do have a gun, I'm not a trainer, but I would advise you to be very deliberate and know what you're getting yourself into.
Yes, I'd say so.
I've never been in a situation where I've pulled a gun to shoot, so I don't know how I would react in that situation because I've never been there. But I know that like when I think about that happening, or I'm in an environment where I feel like that's a possibility, it makes the idea of it makes me so angry, just like a level of rage that like I don't know if I could stop myself from. I feel like I would either freeze up or not do anything, or I would be so angry that I would do something stupid just because I just can't. Like the idea of just someone being like, I'm going to take what you have by force.
I know.
Infuriates me to an end where it's like I could see sacrificing myself just to be an example of like not everyone is going to be this easy.
That's the thing. When you sit here,
easy to say,
casually with no danger, I hope. It's, you think about it logically. Okay, I'm in my car. They want to steal my car. There's 4 or 5 of them. They're 17 years old or whatever it is. And then whether they're armed or not, they're probably going to be armed, at least one of them or two. And maybe you don't even know which ones are armed. The natural reaction of a human being who has any morality at all, this shouldn't be allowed to happen. Right. I should be able to shoot. Then you think, well, okay, what's this going to be like in court now next week or tonight or next month? These 5 innocent little teenagers were not even sure they were armed. They were just trying to steal your car. You're going to kill somebody over a car? Is that car worth someone's life? You just start thinking how it's going to go in court.
In a just world, every car manufactured would come with a built-in, like some sort of gun holder / safe, and you have a Glock 18 right there in your center console. When you get in your car, you do a boop, boop, and you unlock it. So it's just a matter of grabbing it and it's ready to go. And then, when you get out of your car to go in, you boop, boop, and it locks again and it's safe and no one can steal it and access it. But when you're riding around, you got it right there and they roll up on you and you got the Glock 18 and maybe it's one of those that's got the little fancy, just hit the thing and you got the stock that comes out.
Right. Better yet, a force field or something. Shoot, they get electrocuted if they touch your car. I don't know.
I still think again, like not everyone has to be John Wick. I mean, if just people trying, just shots being sent the other way, word would get out, and prosecuting these guys. That's the other thing. When they do catch them, prosecute them.
Oh yeah.
That's the other problem. To me, it's a double. It comes from both ends. It's like police got to prosecute, and then people got to have better access to firearms in those situations.
Put them away. or just drive a junker car. That's what you need to. But well, the problem is inherent in carjacking situations. You think about it, you're probably going to be in a city, right? And if you're if you're shooting out into the city. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there's just nothing good about it.
It'll probably be real late at night though. That's usually when it happens.
There's a good argument for the judge or the governor. You
True,
know?
true,
the
yeah.
gun that all the trainers hate. I know.
Yeah.
But you're just trying to save your life in your car.
I mean, no, you're right. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, because what you got? I mean, some of those have 6 shots, right? Or
Yeah, you're not
five
going
or
to kill
6.
somebody in the 4th floor up there in that building. You know.
Right.
I don't know. It's
It's tough situation, but it'd be nice if in these cities they let us protect ourselves.
yeah, it would. What would be the best car to avoid carjacking?
Probably the Cybertruck. It's
Cybertruck, well,
the
yeah,
Tesla.
that, but
it's bulletproof.
They would want it though if they could get it. What would be the least desirable car to carjack?
Maybe a flying car, just go up.
No, I'm thinking of something that's out there, like a 1987 Camry. I don't know, something that nobody wants. They don't even want to drive it.
But honestly, a lot of those like lower end cars are more likely to be stolen because they're easier to steal. One, and the kind of people that would buy stolen parts are more likely to need a part for something like that.
There's got to be an old beat up pickup truck. I don't know. There's got to be something.
At this point, anything with a manual transmission, I think.
There you go, manual transmission. Yeah. Are there any cars left that just by looking at it, you know it's got a manual transmission? Have to be 30 years old, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really bad because it's just it's not easy to react to that. You take someone, Massey, whoever, Clint Smith, some of the very most knowledgeable, defensive firearms trainers, and I'm sure they would probably tell you that is one of the most difficult situations to deal with, not only from a legal standpoint, but just to deal with it.
Yeah, I always loved. We'll wrap it up here in a second because I got to pee really bad. Okay. But I always loved. I forgot exactly how he said it, but there was this quote from Masa Youb. And he was on some TV show we were watching years ago. I think back when I still lived at home. Mm-hmm. And it was he was telling a story about this like training that he went through for instructors. It was like some sort of training course, but it was all other instructors that were going through it, right? And like a coach's clinic kind of thing,
Yeah.
And they had this scenario set up, and they had to get in this car and then drive to this thing, and it was like this match or whatever. And he was explaining how he was saying and they had someone in the back seat, and only 2 of the instructors checked the back seat. I was one of them. And, just the way that. He said it so smooth.
I remember that.
And that's probably not exactly what he said, but it was something like that.
I know.
He said it so confidently and humble somehow.
Well, no, he's
but
a
it was
piece of
like,
work.
I mean, that guy, I love that guy.
I do too. I was so happy to meet him finally.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah.
You remember I went running down the stairs when I saw him?
He was super nice. He was so nice.
He was, and he was familiar with the videos.
Yeah.
He was a really, really good. I was afraid when I walked up to him, oh my God, you're that idiot that makes those really ridiculous videos. I thought, no.
Yeah.
Because he's not shy.
Yeah. Another one I love of his is when he shows how he clears a hotel room. Mm-hmm. And he goes through all the different things, which I know he's just, if you're going to do that, he's showing how to do it. But there was a thing where it's like, I was just picturing him doing that every single time. You get
the feeling he does that every time he checks it.
So like, all right,
he may do that.
Maybe relax a little bit,
That's maybe he's been in Chicago a lot.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thanks for coming on again. It was fun.
All right.
What do you think about the new?
Yeah, looks pretty good. Looks like we're pretty safe from at least from incoming.
Anything that direction.
Yeah, incoming from there.
Yeah, exactly. So. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah. Thank you all for watching.
We'll do it again.
Okay. See you later.
Thanks. All right. Bye.